Welcome back, I'm Shy Ill, and we are back at it with The Traitor by Anabel Hernández. The Secret Diary of the Son of El Mayo, Vicentillo Zambada. Last episode, we got through the pleasantries of finding out how this book came to be, Anabel's relationship with the attorney, Gaciola, and we got into the early life of Vicentillo and the early attempts on his life. 16 years old, tried to gun him down in a car that happened to be armor, thanks to his father. And we left off at the end of chapter 1 with supposed Arellano Félix sicarios trying to take him out at his sister's home. Last we saw, there was somebody whose arm was through the door with the gun in hand, letting off rounds. We're jumping straight into chapter 2 and 3. Thank you for joining me. Hit that like button, subscribe, let's get it. Once upon a time in America, at the lavish Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, the most dazzling and eye-catching on the Strip, where the nights were endless and the champagne gushed just as easily as thousands of dollars at the gaming tables. The diligent cashier, Donald Clinker, was aware of one of his VIP clients, the prominent Cuban Antonio Vasquez. It was December 1977, and Cruz Vasquez was one of the very few Caesars customers who had $1 million credit line. Nico, as they called him, was the perfect customer, attractive, in his 50s, elegant, wasteful, gambler, and a good loser. In 2.5 years, he had lost $2.9 million with the same grace as his smile. Listen, man, I don't care how much you got. You out there losing 2.9. I don't care what I got. I'm smirking. There's definitely not going to be a graceful smile on my face. But whatever. Like all Caesars gamblers at that level, Cruz Vasquez was offered food, drinks, jewelry, luxury vehicles, and even the company of females. As he was building a mansion in Las Vegas for his family, the hotel and casino gave him more than $25,000 worth of furniture. After working at a Las Vegas bank, at the Fremont Hotel, the Horseshoe, and the Desert Inn, where he had seen almost everything, the cashier Clinker did not see Nico with a particular set of eyes, who always conducted himself in an elegant and polite manner like anything other than a businessman. Also, at Caesars, as in the rest of the casinos in Nevada, it was bad taste to inquire about the origin of your customer's money. Nico was no ordinary VIP. He was the head of an important group of traffickers of heroin from Mexico that annually sold about 300 kilos of heroin. They called Chiva in New York and New Jersey. With an annual profit of $18 million, losing so much money at the Caesars casino wasn't something that took away his dreams. Due to his criminal activities, Nico had little mobility. A large part of their business was managed by phone, so he was content to go from his mansion to Caesars, splurge the money, and from the casino back to his mansion. He was so fond of the place that during investigations carried out by the U.S. government into their illicit activities, discovered that the money that these traffickers used to pay for shipments of drugs was wrapped in Caesar's Palace bank paper, and that Andres Rapard, one of his main accomplices, was a dealer at the blackjack table in the same casino. On January 28, 1978, Nico's good fortune ended. It was none of his men who betrayed him, but his flashy way of life and the damn phone, which has been the cause for many a toppled gangster, huh? Chicas, champagne, the fur hat and coat, an American gangster. He was arrested at his Las Vegas residence in an operation that was simultaneously performed in New York and New Jersey. They arrested him and 10 other accomplices. For a year, the gang accused of distributing Mexican dark heroin had been investigated and was under surveillance and telephone interception. The inquest began in New Jersey by the Narcotics Strike Force and continued by the DEA in Las Vegas. These operations back then were different. They had wiretaps and stuff like that, but this was pre-cell phone, pre-encryption, pre-all that good stuff. The 70s in Vegas had to be like the Wild Wild West at that point. While Nico came and went every day from Caesars, displaying his charm and his luxuries, he was guarded 24/7. In the trial carried out in a federal court in Brooklyn, New York, authorities released 200 reels of recordings of wiretappings of his criminal businesses. "I can only make a mistake in my part of the business," Nico said bitterly to the officers at the time he was arrested. "You can make a mistake every week." That sounds like a threat. A year later, Cruz Vasquez was sentenced to 15 years in prison, after which he'd be on parole for life, paying fines of $125,000 along with some of his henchmen, Antonio Gonzalez, Jose de la Fe Quintas, and Andres Rapard. In my entire career of almost 18 years, I've never seen so much money in one place as I saw in his trial, said Judge Jack Mishler after sentencing. Cruz was a big and sophisticated operator. He would have achieved a lot of fame had he been Anglo or Italian, said senior official in Las Vegas after his capture, letting out a racist stink against the Latino. Sometimes people think that doesn't exist, that there's judges out there with racist, prejudice ideologies. They exist, and they throw people away every day. Antonio Cruz Vasquez was the teacher of Ismael El Mayo Zambada. It was him and nobody else who introduced him to the world of drug trafficking when he was not yet 20 years old. Nico was his brother-in-law. He was married to his sister, Modesta. This was revealed by the lawyer, Fernando Garciola, in one of our many conversations. He was confident enough with me at this point to reveal something that had not been revealed outside of the family. And thanks to this, today, we know the antecedents of Mayo's criminal history. Some of these conversations were written by Garciola, who sent me a copy via email. Cruz was a good man. He helped me a lot, and I will always be grateful to him, said Mayo to Garciola. Ismael Zambada Garcia was born and raised in El Alamo, a tiny rancheria located 17 kilometers from the center of Culiacan, the capital of the state of Sinaloa. The community has no more than 200 inhabitants. There are only about 50 homes. According to his younger brother, Jesus Reynaldo, alias El Rey, his father was a merchant and his mother was an elementary school teacher. His parents had at least 6 children: Modesta, Ana Maria, Agueda, Vicente, Ismael, and Jesus Reynaldo, all surnamed Zambada Garcia. Nobody knows exactly the date of birth of El Mayo. According to the file of the Most Wanted, published by the DEA, he was born in 1948, but does not even risk suggesting a month or day. Mexican intelligence has over 10 dates that are probable. This is due to the various aliases that Mayo has created throughout his various birth certificates. Geronimo Lopez Landeros, Javier Hernández Garcia, Jesus Luisa Avendaño, and so on and so forth. El Rey said his brother is 12 years older than him. For those that don't know El Rey is also another family member of El Mayo, his brother, who, as well as his son Vicentillo, testified against El Chapo. El Rey said his brother is 12 years older than him. El Rey was born in August 1961. That means that the Capo would have been born in 49. Garciola confirmed to me that he was born in January 1949. So in 2019, El Mayo turned 70. The confusion created around his date of birth is a direct reflection of the complexity of his personality and the way he conducts his personal life and business. The way in which the criminal career of Nico, his mentor, ended gave him a lifelong lesson. So far, El Mayo has not made the fatal mistake that leads to death, or worse, to jail. Well, we know his fatal mistake was believing his godson and going with him to quell a beef between 2 politicians. That was the biggest mistake he made. That was a mistake that his predecessor Nico didn't make, that he made. And for those that don't know, his godson kidnapped him, brought him to the United States, and turned him over to United States law enforcement. Those who know him affirm that he lives with a low profile, without ostentation, in anonymity. Garciola said that he prefers to dress as a pawn rather than an elegant or in a military outfit. Confusion is your best ally. That's what allowed him to spend half a century in drug trafficking without ever being arrested and with intact wealth. A record that took work and care and eagerness. If there's one thing Mayo hates, literally, it's the ostentatious and indiscreet, especially if they do business with him. Many understood it too late, including Joaquin Guzman Loera, who is now in a maximum security prison in the United States after being sentenced to life in prison by the same court that buried the criminal career of Nico. An irony of fate. The irony of fate is, no matter how careful El Mayo was, he still ended up in the same style of prison, in the same country, the United States of America, as the ostentatious and very indiscreet Chapo Guzman, by the hands of Chapo Guzman's son. That's an irony. El Mayo told Garciola about his childhood days at the Alamo. He remembered his childhood with nostalgia of someone who had a good life in their family environment. He studied at the Eustaquio Buena Public Primary School, known as La Ocho, located in the center of Culiacan. His parents sent him to the state capital with relatives who lived in Rafael Buena neighborhood, hoping it would give him a future. At age 13, he met Rosario Niebla Cardosa, 3 years older than him. The flame, affectionately known as Chaito, and assures that it was his first love, and she was his first wife, the mother of Vicentillo. Chaito is originally from El Dorado, neighboring El Alamo. Brunette, pretty. At the time, an uncle of El Mayo's had a butcher shop in that town where Chaito's family sent her to buy meat. The first meeting happened when the father of El Mayo was returning by railroad from Mexico City, where he had gone for medical treatment. And there, while Mayo was waiting for him in his uncle's butcher shop, he saw the young woman. For Mayo, it was love at first sight. I didn't see her again for 3 years, the Capo told Gasiola. And he did not see her again because soon after, his father passed away. On August 26, 1962, El Mayo was 12 years old. He had barely finished primary school and could no longer study secondary school because he had to help with the support of his brothers. Ray was barely a year old when he was orphaned by his father. El Mayo's father led a legal life, but an uncle of his was already dedicated to the planting of marijuana and poppies. Ismael Zambada dropped out of school and returned to El Poblal. He worked from sunrise to sunset on his uncle's land, cutting firewood and making fences. And when he wasn't working for him, he was engaged in any other work as a peasant. In times of drought, he would look for more work in Mazatlan. The important thing was to help his mother with the home load, and he worked all the honest chores he could find. Finally, he went to El Dorado, where there was more work and better pay. The town's economy, larger than El Alamo, was based on the El Alamo sugar mill. Dorado, one of the most important sugar production centers in Mexico, and certainly the largest in Sinaloa at that time. It extended over a territory of 3,700 hectares. El Mayo cleaned the mud from the streets of the carts that transported the sugar cane. Just like when he worked in the fields, he accepted all kind of work to earn money and help with support of his siblings. There he worked until they unionized and he lost his job. At 17, consumed by his love for Chaito, he stole her. I took her from Alimo and we got married, he told the lawyer himself. We got married by 3 laws. The law of the mountain, the law of God, and the law of man, Chaito used to say. He took her from the Alamo. They had a religious marriage in a church in the community of Costa Rica, and later by the civil township where Chaito was from. When El Mayo lost his job at the sugar mill, he got a job as a driver, driving a truck that moved agricultural products in the El Dorado area. The fate of the young couple, Zambada Niebla, changed when at the end of the 60s, a Cuban named Antonio Vasquez, who already had a long criminal record behind him, enters the picture. Nico was originally from Havana, Cuba. At the age of 32, the revolution triumphed and Fidel Castro overthrew Batista. In 1959, Nico became a national police captain, according to the records of the American government. Sometime later, he appeared in Nicaragua. Some claim that he worked for the CIA. Quite possible. Some claim that he worked for the CIA there when the dictator, Anastasio Somoza, was in power. It's alleged that after his arrest in Las Vegas, a police officer questioned him about this, but Nico refused to speak. In the 1960s, Cruz Vasquez obtained a false birth certificate. He said he was born in Puerto Rico. Later, he traveled to the United States, where he was arrested at least 3 times before becoming the Lord of Heroin in New York and New Jersey. The information gathered through the judicial process in United States courts in the Eastern District of Brooklyn do not make a connection or have a date or time or event in which Nico and the Mayo family came together. It's not clear and it doesn't coincide with any other events. It is true that after his penultimate imprisonment in the U.S., he traveled to Sinaloa, where he met Modesta Zambada Garcia, Mayo's sister. He married her and acquired Mexican nationality. The name of Modesta and the surname Zambada appeared in the investigation of the American authorities against Nico in 1977, as well as in news published about the powerful Cuban drug lord. Quote, the drug smuggling operations led by Cruz Vasquez were well organized and well oiled. They originated in the Vasquez-Zambada family farm near Culiacan in the Mexican state of Sinaloa. The Zambada family guaranteed the production of heroin to Nico. Sinaloa was famous due to the extensive production of poppies from which the opium gum is extracted. and with which the so-called dark heroin is produced. The merchandise was packed and shipped in suitcases by air from Sinaloa to other destinations in Mexico, and from there, in complicity with Aeromexico employees responsible for the luggage, they changed the labels of the suitcases, and these were traveling to Tucson, where others bribed employees, airline employees. They were crossing the suitcases through customs, as it was learned through the criminal record. At age 19, El Mayo became a drug trafficker thanks to his brother-in-law. And as a family man at 20, thanks to Chaito, his firstborn Maria Teresa Maitecita, as he affectionately calls her, was born on June 17, 1969. It was during Chaito's pregnancy that Mayo got into the drug business, he told the lawyer Gasiola. After, Miriam Patricia was born on March 4, 1971. Vicente on March 24, 1975. Monica on March 2, 1980. And Modesta on November 22, 1982. Mayo's heart stayed linked to the history of El Alamo. He still has a home there, which was actually his main home, Gasiola revealed. Today it's still a small community, but clean and organized. The streets are cobbled. The house is simple, brick and cement. It's striking that all the fences are identical, red lattice and log. There's a white church surrounded by gardens and a colonial-style ironwork fence, of the bell tower and a fountain of ornaments in the atrium. It's not by chance. Quote, the main church of El Alamo collapsed in a storm. The houses were left destroyed, and then Mayo rebuilt the houses in order the town to be paved. There was a time where the community received so many benefits from El Mayo that they became loyal. There's an obligation to be loyal. It's a form of corruption, said Gasiola. Something we talk about here all the time. When they claim to be giving back to the community, is giving back to the community a bribe? If you ask me, it is. If you ask me, it's just another form of oppression. Utilize the people's hunger against them. I still live there, Mayo confided to the lawyer during their meetings. I just got back from there. I was there a few days. Were recurring phrases. Although the truth is that he lives in many places, Gasiola told me. He cannot sleep in one place more than one night. Security reasons and harassment from your enemies require you to be in a constant state of alert. Nico changed the life of El Mayo and his family forever. For a young man whose mother worked tirelessly to feed her children, he was surely the only boy in class who drove a brand new Porsche. Nico gave it to him, perhaps to make up for the gap in his orphanhood. El Mayo was a peasant. What life options are there in the Golden Triangle? Gasiola told me one day. Before my answer, he replied, are you an architect of your own destination? Yes, of course. Tell the people of the Sierra de Oaxaca that. And Mayo has told his family that he did it to get out of poverty. He does not live in palaces, does not wear jewelry, is not ostentatious. No one that knows him will be able to say something like that about him. In a long interview that I did with a former official of the Federal Directorate of Security, whom I called the informant, in my book Los Señores del Narco, Grijalbo, 2010, explained to me that in 1970 there were no drug cartels, but that there were bands known as clicas that were dedicated to planting marijuana and poppies, and they smuggled it to the United States. Everything was done with the permission from the government that was presided over by Luis Echevarria Alvarez. To traffic, the sowers had to pay a kind of tax so that a part of their earnings would reach the pockets of the government. There were bundles and bundles of green bills, dollars, said the former official. That drug money helped create fortunes overnight from authorities and businessmen. The Secretary of the Interior, the Secretary of Defense, the Attorney General of the Republic, and even the President were aware of these agreements and the payments corresponding. There was almost no shipment that did not pass through the permit or surveillance of the Army, the DFS, and the Judicial Police. Drug trafficking was a state matter. Our own government had the crops under its control. In 1975, the so-called Operation Condor began in Mexico, sponsored by the United States, supposedly to combat the planting of marijuana and poppies. The American government provided aerial equipment, radars, and training to government officials in Mexico. But in reality, everything was fixed, said the former official. And Mayo began to build his empire right on par with Operation Condor. As far as Vicentillo's story and what Mayo himself said to Gasiola, it's confirmed that they never arrested him or other drug traffickers. Indeed, everything was arranged. Quote, on many occasions, I was one of the men who received the drug traffickers to receive payment of their taxes. That was how the representative of the DFS met Mayo personally. In 1978 in Culiacan, Sinaloa, and Mayo presented him with his tax payment at the office. For him, who knew Mayo directly, there was no doubt. The real boss of El Chapo is Ismael Zambada. The true architect of everything is El Mayo. He and El Chapo knew each other, they had mutual friends, but initially they did not work together. El Mayo has always been independent. They are people of fear, people of great respect. El Mayo, when he kills, he kills. Then, the rules of drug traffickers were different. They were incapable of attacking the civil population. The beginning of El Mayo's criminal career on a large scale, contrary to what has been said until now, was in the United States, specifically in Los Angeles. That's where the Sinaloa cartel was really born, and where it settled many of its interests, operational and economic. And Mayo came to live with his family in the so-called City of Vice since 1977, although in 1978 Nico was arrested and a part of his heroin trafficking ring remained dismantled. Cold-blooded, El Mayo remained in Los Angeles for 5 years. From 1977 to 1982, I lived in Los Angeles, California. There I was working well. All the money I made I brought to El Alamo and invested it in land and crops. Gave work to people. All well done, Mayo confided to Gasiola with pride. In those days, I sold marijuana and some goat, but without violence or any of that. The bad thing is that today's people get into kidnapping to gain ground and the right to step, steal, and kill. I didn't do that, nor did anyone else involved with me, said the boss. Los Angeles is as important to the Sinaloa cartel as Culiacan is. For Mayo, the two cities and their surroundings have been warehouses where the drug is concentrated and distributed in various parts of the United States. Over 50 years, Mayo has built a complex network of warehouses, employees, safe houses, companies, methods of transportation, and change of foreign exchange. The same ones who distributed the drugs were the same ones who later collected the millions in profits that returned to the hands of El Mayo and his suppliers in Colombia. While El Mayo lived in Los Angeles, he constantly traveled from one side of the city to the other, crossed the border without major problems. In 1982, when Vicentillo was 7 years old, he moved in with Chaito and his children to Tijuana, although their daily life continued to take place in both sides of the border. In 1985, the world of narcos and not-so-narcos was shaken after the murder of the DEA agent Enrique Kiki Camarena. American and Mexican authorities blamed several different friends of El Mayo, such as Rafael Caro Quintero, Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo, and Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo. Actually, most likely, the intellectual authors of this were the CIA, since Camarena had discovered the complicity between the powerful U.S. agency, Pablo Escobar, and the Mexican cartels. And today the version circulates that even one of Camarena's bosses are being investigated for this fact. Either way, the situation ended up benefiting Mayo. That same year, after the arrest of Caro Quintero and Fonseca Carrillo, Felix Gallardo allied with him. Cocaine trafficking to the United States continued. According to Ray, this alliance allowed his brother to participate in profitable businesses with the Medellin cartel. So it looks like Mayo's in with Medellin was Felix Gallardo. All right, if you watched Netflix Narco series, this connection and this building of the Sinaloa cartel was the premise of that show. Felix Gallardo was free for some years until April 1989. They apprehended him in Guadalajara. Months later, they arrested Amado Carrillo Fuentes, his godson in Sinaloa. Fortunately for him, he introduced himself under the name of Juan Carlos Barron and said that he was dedicated to livestock. Despite being accused of crimes against health and arms trafficking, curiously, Amado was quickly released. And who was waiting for him with open arms? El Mayo, his godfather. As soon as Amado got his freedom, Joaquin Guzman Loera began to work for him. At that time, El Chapo was just an acquaintance of El Mayo. First thing El Mayo did with the profits made from drug trafficking was legally engage in agriculture and livestock. He was a man with a vision, and actually, he liked to live in the country, but not as a laborer. When he started a business, just like that of drug trafficking, it had to be on a large scale. He didn't squander everything on women or luxuries. He planned everything in such a way that his dirty money financed legal businesses. This way, he laundered the money and moved it more easily. All right, we know notoriously Mayo is known for loving his rancho, Mayo's known for loving his animals and wanting to be there. Condominiums is not a word in his vocabulary. He is about having a rancho. He's about being in the mountains. He's about being in nature. And there's nothing he would rather have right now than to be on that rancho. Instead, he's in an American prison. We've heard rumors that he is connected to avocado farming and fruit and vegetables, and you can't touch a product here nor there that isn't connected to Mayo or the cartel in some way. With various false names, El Mayo always presented himself as a rancher. In 1984, he began to buy land in El Salado, El Dorado, Quila, and Puerto Rico. On February 2nd, 1988, El Mayo created the first legal company of his empire, New Industria de Ganaderos de Culiacán, Nueva Industria, with the help of a notary public, Matias Santiago Astengo Vudurgo. The company had 100,000 shares worth 1,000 pesos at the time, and 7 associates or names listed. It's striking that there are people who volunteered to participate in Mayo's operation, and they had titles like civil engineer and surgeon and computer student and lawyer, and almost all were neighbors of the residential neighborhood of Las Quintas in Culiacán. Although it was supposed to be a very discreet operation, Mayo sent Chaito as commissioner of the company, with the notary to formalize the act of creation of the company. Only 27 days after the creation of the company, its capital increased from 100 million to 1,200 million pesos. The commercial purpose of the company was to industrialize milk through processes of pasteurization as well as its derivatives, industrialize fruits or fruit essences and their derivatives, provide choral services, buy cattle, distribute it, fatten it, and sell it either live or not. Although the company's domicile was located in Culiacán, they had the possibility of opening branches throughout the country. Yes, everything was going very well. Things changed when the Arellanos got the idea of owning Tijuana, Mayo told Gasiola. Son of a tiger. After making peace and after some time, my father and Amado Carrillo Fuentes, my compadre, found out that Ramon had wanted to kill my compadre Chapo. My father was really upset because he had been left in the middle of everything. It seems that Mayo has always been in the middle of the shitstorm, right? The voice of reason, and somehow got caught up in the middle of the Chapito's deal and used as leverage. The Ramon he speaks of is Ramon Arellano. Ramon and my friend Chapo were in Guadalajara and Chapo ran into him. He stopped his car to say hello, but Ramon started shooting at him. Oh man, they're so friendly. Sometime later, I was with my father when my friend Amado called him. He told him that Benjamin Arellano, had called and blamed Chapo, and even my father, for trying to kill him in a nightclub in Puerto Vallarta, 1992. Because Ramon had wanted to kill him, my friend decided to kill the Arellano Félix brothers. The information that my friend Chapo and Güero Palma had was that all the Arellano Félix brothers were going to be at a nightclub in Puerto Vallarta, and my friend Chapo and Güero Palma had sent their people there to kill him. The nightclub was called Christine. Neither of the Arellano Félix brothers died in that confrontation. The massacre was carried out with military precision. This is how the media described the attack on the nightclub at the Crystal Hotel, which occurred in the early hours of Sunday, November 8, 1992. It left an official balance of 6 dead and 3 wounded and did not achieve its objective to kill the brothers Francisco Javier and Ramon Arellano Félix. The two saved themselves by hiding in the bathroom ceiling to escape through the air conditioning duct when the shots had stopped. Just so much collateral damage that these dudes cared none about. They go in there to get 2 dudes, they smoke 6 people that had nothing to do with it. That to me don't make you a gangster, that makes you a sucker as far as I'm concerned. It'd be something if they got their guys and they got 6 other people in the midst of it, but they didn't even get the guys they went there to get. It was 2:30 a.m. when a white diner truck parked in front of the premises. 50 men dressed in dark clothing with bulletproof vests and AKs and R-15s got out. The truck was escorted by 3 pickup trucks. The squad formed 3 lines. 2 covered the flanks to prevent escape, and another one entered the premises opening fire. But neither Ramon nor Benjamin were stupid. They knew that El Chapo didn't have the power to make that decision himself. Although he and Güero Palma attracted the attention of Mexican and American authorities because of the violent attack at the nightclub, it was El Mayo who was behind it. He, Mayo, regretted the fact that Ramon was not killed because he was a dangerous enemy. His brother Ray reportedly commented 7 years later. More than just dangerous, the Arellano Félix family was preventing El Mayo from using the Tijuana border for drug trafficking, even though he had spent years investing capital and people in creating a drug smuggling structure in the city and Los Angeles. 2 months after what happened in Christine, I went to a party at a nightclub in Tijuana with my friend Amado Carrillo Fuentes. Afterward, there was a meeting with the Arellano Félix brothers and my friend Amado. I was there with my friend Amado, and he told me that they were going to see Benjamin because there was already a problem between them and my father. Amado told me that I should stick close to him and not worry. That same night, my friend Amado and I went to the meeting with the Arellano Félix family. We saw them at one of their safe houses. When we arrived, there were a lot of armed people, and Benjamin Arellano was already waiting for us. When Benjamin greeted my friend Amado, he noticed me standing next to him. He was surprised and asked me, "What are you doing here?" My friend Amado said, "He's with me. He doesn't do anything here. He's just with me." This must be everything that leads up to them running in on Vicentillo and his sister's house. We'll see. We entered the house. They went to the living room and I stayed in the kitchen. Ramon wasn't there. Benjamin and my friend Amado called me into the living room where they were. When I entered, they were talking about a person named Rafael Aguilar Guajaldo. And they said that Rafael wanted to kill my father. Benjamin asked my friend to join forces with them, with the Arellano Félix brothers, to kill my friend Chapo and my father. So they openly talking about smoking his own man right in front of him? Why not leave him in the kitchen for that? My friend Amado said, "I know you have a problem with Chapo, but you brought it on yourselves." And that was one of the reasons he was there in Tijuana to speak on behalf of my father, that he didn't want any trouble, and that if they wanted to kill my father, they had to kill him first. The moment came when the situation became tense. I was there, and Benjamin started yelling in my face, telling me he was going to kill my father. He said with many insults that he was going to kill El Chapo and Güero Palma as well. El Chapo and your father are going to regret trying to kill us in that nightclub. I just stared at him. I had nothing to do with it. What the fuck were you even there for? Why would Amado even take you to that? I don't understand that part. The meeting ended around 1 or 2 in the morning. We left the house and my friend Amado said it was best to leave right away. We weren't even going to pick up our things at the hotel. We went to the airport. My friend Amado had 2 Lear jets waiting for us. Of course you did. That's the Lord of the Skies. That boy probably had all kind of different airplanes waiting for you. That same night, we flew to Hermosillo. The reason was that my friend Amado told me he didn't trust Ramon. He was sure he'd been watching the house and could do something to us. I stayed for a few hours at my friend Amado's house in Hermosillo, and then he flew me to Culiacan on a private plane. My father sent someone named Gilberto Perraza to pick me up and took me to my dad. My dad asked me what happened in Tijuana, and I told him that Benjamin had yelled in my face, cursed me, and that he was going to kill him, and my friend Chapo. He told me he had spoken to my friend Amado and told him not to worry, not to pay attention to this. But what my dad was really mad about was that I was supposed to go back to school the day before because I was still going to school, but I didn't go. After facing death twice at the age of 17, Vicentillo wanted to show his father that he was brave, a worthy son, but he couldn't understand why Mayo had so many other things on his mind. He wasn't the only son in danger, nor were his mother and sisters the only family to protect. While Mayo was living with Chaito in 1988, he began a relationship with psychologist Leticia Ortiz Hernandez, 15 years his junior. She was originally from El Salado, a town very close to El Alamo. Her father, Agustin Ortiz, was a distant nephew of President Lázaro Cárdenas del Rio. He worked for the federal government protecting wild flora and preventing illegal logging, and later worked for the Sinaloa Water Resources Secretariat for 30 years. Letty, as Mayo calls her, says that she had known him all her life because they were from neighboring communities, but at the age of 24, she fell in love with him when she met him again in Mexicali, Baja California in 1988. This is the reason why her father stopped speaking to her for 2 years. In 1990, Serafín Zambada Ortiz was born, followed by Teresita. Both have American citizenship. Mayo took Leti to live in Tijuana, perhaps to more easily coexist with his two families. She gave birth in California, as was the custom at the time. All right, the custom at the time is for cartel bosses to have more than one family. If you could afford them and place them strategically in the right spot, you could have you a couple of families, and most of them did. We've heard many accounts of people having extra families on this channel. Living in Tijuana, I met the entire Arellano Félix family, and my children's father had a very close relationship with them, especially with Benjamin. The relationship was so special that he is the godfather of my two children, Leti explained. So these guys, they all baptize each other's kids. They all go to each other's weddings. They all family and friends, and their kids call their compadres tío and all of that shit. And then they try to smoke each other. It's just what it is. In 1992, after my daughter was born and shortly after her baptism, things started to go very badly for the Arellano Félix family. In March 1992, we had to leave Tijuana for Culiacán because the violence started. There were many years of wandering and suffering, fear. When Serafín turned 2, a car bomb exploded outside his birthday party. The war against Mayo was on their turf and from all sides. You know, little kid party, McDonald's, you get a little bouncy house, and bombas go off. You never know what's going to happen. In addition to Chaito and Leti, Mayo had other women. Rosalinda Diaz Garcia, Dora Alicia Beltán Corrales, María del Refugio Sicarios Aispuro, Alicia Lara Camberos, and Margarita Imperial Lopez, according to the Mexican government intelligence information to which I had access. My problem is women, Mayo confessed to Gasiola. His vices didn't consist of drugs, alcohol, jewelry, or material things. His vice was women, and he indeed partook. To this day, Chaito is the first in his heart, but his weakness for women betrays him. He's told me he's had other women and has loved them or still loves them, but he clarifies that Chaito is the first, and the first in his heart. The lawyer claimed the kingpin told him during one of their meetings. In addition to his children with Chaito and Leti, according to Mexican government records, he is also the father of Ismael Zambada Sicarios, Ismael Zambada Imperial, and Ana Maria Zambada Lara. Gasiola told me he had more children, at least 10, the youngest of whom is named Emiliano. Coño, man, Mayo was getting around, boy. In 1993, the Arellano Félix family intensified their hunt for Vicentillo to deal a fatal blow to El Mayo. They understood that the boy was their weakest link. Vicente studied until high school, but he didn't finish. He had to drop out. The Arellanos killed his classmates. Almost all of his high school friends were murdered, Gasiola told me. God damn, man. Mexico's different when it comes to collateral damage. They'll just take out the whole school, huh? The Arellanos were ruthless. That sounds like a bold claim, you know. He had to drop out. The Arellanos killed all his friends, killed all his classmates, like coño, man. Leti, Mayo's other wife, confirmed the story that several teenagers were murdered in Tijuana for the sole reason that they had played on the same soccer team as Vicentillo. In Cartel episode 1, I covered a video, and we talked about a story about how he had to leave or his mother pulled him out of a private school because the other parents wouldn't allow him to go on field trips with their children or wouldn't invite them to the birthday parties and things like that, right? And one person commented that, no, that's the kid that he'd want his kid to go to his parties. That way he's plugged with the father. Bro, they smoked the soccer team because they played with Vicentillo. They smoked a bunch of school kids because they played with Vicentillo. That sounds ridiculous to me. The women, the wives, they confirmed the story, but the disregard for human life sounds ridiculous. At the same time that the firstborn of Mayo tried to save his life, another was on the way. On November 26, 1993, at the young age of 18, he became a father. His son, Vicente Ismael Zambada Borboa, was born. His father was his godfather at his baptism, and Amado Carrillo Fuentes was his godfather at his confirmation, which is why he was called compadre. Vicente married his first girlfriend, Zintia Borboa Zazueta, got her pregnant when they were very young, and they've been together ever since. Garciola explained, repeating that Vicentillo himself had told him. Zintia, born on January 30th, 1975, was the same age as her husband when their first child was born. The first of three, all boys. Garciola described her as a typical Sinaloan. Beautiful, white, with dark hair, medium height, and a large bosom body. That same year, 1993, Ramon Arellano Félix put a price on Mayo's head, $3 million. His brother Benjamin backed him. They included his hitman David Corona Barron and financial advisor Everaldo Arturo Paez in the decision. The person who volunteered to do the job was a hitman named Ramiro Ramirez. He asked for half the advance payment, but the job was delayed for more than a year. It's not that easy, Ramirez complained. Mayo doesn't show up easily and never stays in the same place. And although they paid him the $3 million, Ramirez never achieved his goal. But the Arellano Félix family didn't give up. Vicentillo had known Enrique Fernández Uriarte, alias Kiki o Dos Tres, all his life. Kiki was a good friend of his father and over the years played various roles in drug trafficking. Kiki invested in drug shipments with El Mayo and also had contacts in Colombia that allowed him to smuggle cocaine into Mexico on his own. That friendship nearly cost El Mayo his life. On June 10th, 2014, Ismael Zambada was the guest of honor at the 15th birthday party of Karim Fernandez, Kiki's daughter. The party was held in a grand setting in a ballroom at the luxurious Camino Real Hotel in Guadalajara. The bands Los Coyonquis and Los Huracanes del Norte provided the dancing for the nearly 300 guests who came from Chihuahua, Sinaloa, and Mexico City. Suddenly, come on, man, don't tell me they're going to ruin the little girl's birthday party, you know what I'm saying? She can't even have a quinceañera without them fucking up the party for her. Suddenly, at 2:30 a.m., an explosion shook the hotel. Explosions at the christenings, explosions at the birthday parties. Can't catch a break around here. The floor, walls, ceiling rumbled. The scene was terrifying. Smoke, screams, broken glass, blood. Several people were thrown into the air. 5 died instantly and 10 were seriously injured. Body parts flew across a 60 square kilometer radius. The next day, forensics experts were still struggling to piece together the fragments and identify the victims. First of all, 2:30 a.m., the 15-year-old's party is still popping? Coño, man, that's a hell of a party, huh? And that wasn't no little bomb. That was a big boy bomb. A military report from the time indicated that several federal and state police commanders were among the guests at Kiki's daughter's party. Media reports indicate that the explosion damaged vehicles, windshields, and windows of homes within a kilometer radius. But Mayo, the target of the attack, was unharmed. You guys, man, the collateral damage, it's like you sending a message. How much collateral damage can I lay around you to prove to you that I'm going to come and get you eventually? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are we talking about here, bro? A quinceañera, and you didn't get your guy. The Arellano Félix family received information that he would be at the party and sent their men to kill him. The Grand Marquis loaded with C4 explosives would have succeeded if the phone of one of those in charge of the attack hadn't rang early, activating the detonator and killing the perpetrators. Wait, what? You mean to tell me that the jerk-offs that set the bomb and set the explosion blew themselves up as well? Because the trigger for the bomb was a phone? Well, they didn't have airplane mode in 2014. They're still trying to blow him up? I'm so confused, bro. I'm pretty sure in 2014 they had airplane mode, papas. So your girl stressing you out, call your phone and accidentally blow you and everybody else the fuck up? Car bombs were not common then, nor are they now in Mexico. Authorities in Jalisco even believed the attack had been carried out by the Basque terrorist group ETA, although Benjamin and Ramon were also acting as terrorists. In 1994, Mayo decided to send Vicentillo. They keep jumping around. Why would they go to 2014 and then take me back to 1994? I don't get it, but whatever. In 1994, Mayo decided to send Vicentillo, who was already 19 years old, further away. He literally sent him to the opposite side of Tijuana, Quintana Roo. Specifically, he sent him to live with his older sister, Maria Teresa, and her husband, Javier Diaz. Javi, as he was known, was the son of a drug trafficker, Baltazar Diaz Vega, alias El Balta, who was known for having been a patron of Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo. When the latter entered the ranks of the international cocaine trade, his fortune was estimated at $500 million. He was arrested in 1991 but served little time in prison. El Balta was Mayo's godfather and later became his father-in-law. It was a mutual benefit. They had a mutual friend, a military officer named Marcos Enrique Torres Garcia. Strangely, his name surfaced in 1999 as a former military officer who had participated in the events that led to the death of Cardinal Posadas. Torres Garcia stated that the murder was the result of a plan orchestrated by politicians to recover documents the prelate had in his possession that implicated them in drug trafficking groups. If indeed the Mexican government was behind taking out Posadas, how crazy is it that it all turned into a shit show all at the same time, and Pocha happens to be there and the Arellanos happen to be there? It just sounds a little too wrapped up with a nice little bow on it for me. I don't know, there's something weird about that day. We're going to have to dig into that day, into those stories deep one of these days on this channel. In 1994, I lived between Culiacan and Cancun in Quintana Roo. In those two places, at that time, I lived with my brother-in-law, Javier Diaz. He was in charge of my father's Cancun market at the time. He received drug shipments from my father on the Atlantic coast, cocaine, which came directly from Colombia. Javier reported directly to my father and my friend Amado Carillo Fuentes, because at the time they worked together. Living with Javier, I was present at multiple meetings between cartel workers and their suppliers, and through all those experiences, I became familiar with how the cartel operated in Cancun. I met Alfredo Beltran Leiva in 1994 when we were both in Cancun. Arturo and Hector, both Beltran Leivas, were friends of my dad. We didn't go to Culiacan much because of the war with the Arellanos. El Azulito, Juan Jose Esparagosa Monzon, son of El Azul, was an employee of Alfredo. My Uncle Ray, Jesus Reinaldo Zambada Garcia, was also there. I saw him many times. He was also receiving drug shipments and cocaine for the cartel from my father. In early January 1996, El Mayo urgently summoned his son to come see him in Culiacan, Garcia told me. That same day, his brother-in-law, Javi, was killed in the parking lot of a Sanborns in Mexico City. A year earlier, also in January, Javi's father, El Balta, had been gunned down in the luxurious neighborhood of San Jeronimo, also in Mexico City. At that moment, a large shipment of cocaine was about to arrive and be unloaded by speedboat off the coast of Cancun. And Mayo asked his son to take charge. All right, this is Vicentillo's moment. All right, it's time for you to take up the family business and go pull those bales out the water. Vicentillo didn't know the details of the operation, the lawyer told me, but he knew Javi's people who knew how to do it. Cooley, the 20-year-old, gave the order to continue the operation while his brother-in-law's body was being held. Listen, you can get smoked in the street. Before your body gets cold, somebody's already doing your job and making sure that that shipment gets to where it gotta go. We're sorry that you're gone, sir, but business as usual. During all that time, I was able to observe how Javi worked and how my father's people received the shipments. So I myself gave the order to my brother-in-law's people and my father's people to receive the shipment, to continue doing the same thing they were doing with my brother-in-law Javier. That was my first intervention related to drug trafficking. Close to 1,600 kilos of cocaine. After this cargo was successfully received in Cancun, I returned to Culiacan as per my father's instructions. At the time, the war with the Arellano Félix brothers continued. They were killing many people, my father's relatives and co-workers in Culiacan, and he told me to go with him, to stay very close to him, because one of their objectives was to harm me, to kill me, so they could hurt my father. And since I was very close to my father at the time, I started watching everything he did and talking to him about his drug trafficking work. I was present at meetings with my friend Amado, with Colombians making drug trafficking deals. Also, meeting with police officers discussing corruption. That's how I started with him. I began to understand how everything was done. And little by little, I began to get involved in my father's business. And the reason I was so attached to him was because of the danger I was in. Because I was his son, his oldest son. And at the end of the day, when you're a powerful man and somebody can't reach you, the heir apparent or their best chance to hurt you from the inside out. There it is, chapter 2 and 3 of Traitor, El Traidor, by Anabel Hernández. The secret diary of the son of El Mayo, El Vicentillo. Vicentillo got his hands in the game, and his father can't manage to keep everybody alive, but he's keeping him alive. We learned of the many loves of El Mayo Zambada, the many, many loves, which bared many, many children, who we see now, his son, Maito Flaco, fighting for his piece of the pie in the war against the Chapitos. The irony, the difference in time, a time when Mayo and Amado Carrillo Fuentes was trying to save Chapo and keep him alive, a time where they were compadres and called each other such. Baby showers, birthday parties, and banquets, not to mention bombs, bullets, and blood. Looking forward to the next chapters. Make sure you join me here. Hit that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment. And let me know what you thought of this episode. Peace.